Hello and welcome to Talking Books. I'm Jill de Villiers. The world is caught in a never-ending chase. Without even realizing, we always seem to be hurrying after something. We're caught in the proverbial rat race that seems to lead us nowhere. My guest today is trend specialist and Singularity University faculty member John Sane, and he's here to talk about his latest book, MAGNETiiZE. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Before we start talking about magnetism, what is the shadow and why is it holding us back?
Jung, the godfather of psychology, is the first person to really come to the forefront with this concept that our personalities are driven by these shadows. These shadows are lurking behind our psychology and motivating us in ways that we don't even understand. Shadows are mostly things that we've been told by society, religion, our parents, that we're not allowed to do. And the minute this gets ingrained into our heads of something we're not allowed to do, we put that emotion into our shadow, quite literally. And then all of a sudden we want to show the world only the parts of the world that are accepted by the world. And what starts happening is that these shadow psychology terminologies or characteristics start ruling our lives. And we see this across many political parties, or we see this in religious sects, where it's all about no sex, but then there's lots of sex happening, but all undercover. Or you have a politician that's so anti-gay, but he's actually gay. So it's a sort of driving force in our psychology that we don't even know that's there.
Yeah, so that is the key. So we are not aware that it's there, but it makes us make decisions that are contrary to what we want to achieve in life.
Absolutely, and they're quite confusing because you catch yourself and say, well, hang on, that's not who I am. Why did I act like that, or why did I do that? And when I started questioning these things, I started doing the work around my shadows and understanding how deeply ingrained and so they're actually so intelligent that they're so deeply ingrained into our perspective that we need to really search for them and get guidance from coaches and specialists to try and help us uncover them.
So that was my next question, is how do you find your shadow? How do you identify your shadows?
So I think the first thing is become aware that they're there. Mm-hmm. And once you start reading up on it or watching some documentaries on it, then seek out coaches and people that can help you identify them by taking you through a process of workshopping. I do speak about the lady I worked with, Angela Deichmann, who helped me uncover mine, and she still does shadow workshops here in Johannesburg around uncovering them.
Now, once you've uncovered your shadows, do they then disappear, or do you have to deal with them on a regular basis?
No, once you uncover them and you've done the work with them, you've understood what has created them, you then are unhinged from their power. And it's quite, if you just look at the analogy, bring it out the shadow into the light. Once it comes into the light, it loses its grip on you.
And then you can become magnetized.
Yes. Well,
how do you?
Yeah, so I think the book really is about uncovering our psychology and understanding why we're chasing. What has happened that we need this constant need for consumerism, the brand new car, the latest watch, this constant need of more. And it's always driven by a deep-seated insecurity, a deep-seated lack of self-worth. And it's this constant need that we need the public to tell us how amazing we're looking or how amazing we are. And this is always driven by these deep shadow sort of psychological traits. When we deal with them, we start changing the chase to magnetize. And we stop needing the outside to give us that sort of recognition, and we create it for ourselves. So it's a very distinct switch in energy. I start the book off with a term that says, are you running away from the darkness, or are you running towards the light? And on the outside, the action looks exactly the same, because from the outside, we're ambitious, we're driven, we show up, we're professional, but one of them is driven by anxiousness and one of them is driven by excitement. Running away from the darkness is what we need to be dealing with in order for us to let go of it, to start running towards the light.
So do you believe in a positive mindset as well, and how should you create that kind of positive mindset?
Well, I think, the thing is that we need to deal with a positive emotional state first. And it's one thing to talk ourselves into an optimistic and positive mindset, but if our emotions aren't healed, if we have memories that have hurt us, if we've not dealt with our shadows, we then become very frustrated in the lack of being constantly optimistic or constantly focused on the positive. And so for me, it's about how do we deal with our emotional states first? How do we get through the process of forgiving our memories and changing our memories and changing our past in our perspective, and then allowing ourselves to move forward in a much lighter, more optimistic, naturally optimistic way.
Now, your books, they are aimed at anybody, or is it specifically aimed at entrepreneurs?
I think anybody. I think the thing is that my first book, What's Your Moonshot, was asking people to think bigger, bolder, and more courageously about the future. Being exposed to the future as I am pretty much every day, I realize the tool sets we have around us. I realize the access to millions and billions of people we have, access to crowdfunding, access to brains from around the world. With these new tool sets that we have around us, we have the same capabilities in our individual capacities that organizations and governments did in the past, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Today, in our individual capacities, we can reach millions of people. This was only set aside for all huge organizations or prime ministers that had access to this. We have the opportunity to do this. The second book, MAGNETiiZE, is all about how conscious are we about our future? How elegant are our decisions about the future? And this is relatable to both entrepreneurs and people working in corporates, as well as students, pretty much across the board, because today, I believe, is something called the age of the spectacular human being. If we are spectacular in ourselves and understand our own power, nobody cares if you're a woman, a man, you're black, you're white, you're green, you're pink, nobody cares. Just create your own power and be able to get that spread around the world.
Now, conscious capitalism,
yes.
What is that?
It's the concept that we shouldn't think about capitalism as either being ruthless or being a hippie. And people always have that sort of idea as well. I'm wearing sandals and eating lentils and wearing cloths all day, or I'm a Wall Street capitalist and trying to get things at sort of zero tolerance towards anybody else. I need to be as powerful and rich as I can be. I think conscious capitalism is a wonderful merge of the two. And I speak about it often around this feminine consciousness coming into the capitalist world. And as we come in and grow into this feminine consciousness that's really permeating a lot of our lives at the moment, we start to see that there's a new way. And conscious capitalism is about having a elegant, long-term process by bringing profitability to yourself, giving a fair deal to your suppliers, your consumers, and the environment, having less of a footprint, and having a longer term ideology around what success is and what business can be. So consciously going about making money. And Peter Diamandis from Singularity University says it best. He says, we all need to be aiming to become the new billionaire. And the new type of billionaire in the world is somebody who impacts 1 billion people's lives positively.
Okay, so immediate profits is not the thing that you need to strive for, but profit in a long term?
So I think we still need to pay rent end of the month, and we still need to pay salaries end of the month. So it wouldn't be realistic for us to say drop short-term profit. What I'm trying to get people to do is first understand that you don't need to be constantly chasing. There's another way to be doing it. And secondly, is that just because you've understood this now doesn't mean you have to take your foot off the pedal of your daily sort of profitability ideas. What I'm urging people to do is spend 70% on your current business, but spend 30% planting seeds for what's about to come and how you can be evolving, how you can be future-proofing yourself. And so to just have a split for the moment, I imagine this 30% will become 40% and 50% soon, and slowly the short-term profit idea will start falling away when we start moving into this reality called a zero marginal cost society, this idea that things start becoming almost free around us. And so the drive becomes different. Measuring success becomes different over the next 10, 15 years.
So earlier you spoke about how things have opened up and the world has opened up for us. And things have changed very rapidly. We've been facing disruption. But are we facing more disruption going ahead? And how will the fourth industrial revolution impact on us?
I don't think we've seen disruption yet. I think what we've seen is just an inkling of it. And I think where technology is taking us over the next 10, 15 years is to a point of singularity by 2045, where computers will be smarter than human beings, where we will have digital neocortexes installed into our heads so we have access to all information. We don't ever have to have a memory of our own. This will have all knowing, collaborative brain that we'll start getting connected to. That's really where I think the upgrade of humanity is starting to happen, and we're starting to see a brand new type of human starting to emerge out of that. And I think some people find that scary, but I also think that if your child had a problem with their eyesight, would you use new medtech technology to give them sight? Yes, you would. So we are utilizing medtech or biotech when we think it's necessary, but what when we start applying that when we're absolutely normal and enhance ourselves? So I think disruption hasn't started yet. I think it's about to really kick in over the next 10, 15 years. And I think it's really exciting because it's giving everybody an opportunity to upgrade and have access. And imagine an 8-year-old girl's life in Malawi who has access to free energy, which gives her access to free education, which gives her access to free food, and just decentralized energy, solar power for that family changes her family, her village, her town, her country, her continent. It's just like it's a ripple effect. So I definitely believe in an optimistic and abundant future that's coming for us.
So jobs may be disappearing, but other jobs will come in their place.
Yes, I think everybody's scared of this idea that jobs are being lost. But I also think if you just take back to the turn of the 19th century, 80% of the human population were farming. Then the Industrial Revolution happened. Then there were factories and tractors. People panicked. They didn't know what was going to happen to their jobs as farmers. Today, 2% of the population farm. We've found other jobs, new technologies have arrived, new positions have been created. So there's this constant transformation that's happening. And it's not the lack of jobs moving forward, it's our lack or our inability to be agile enough to prepare ourselves for the future. And so I talk about AQ in my book, and it's the new Q. You know, we've always driven on IQ and EQ, but AQ is actually the thing we need to be developing for the future, and that's agility quotient, adaptability quotient. It's this flexibility in how we show up and what the future needs from us.
And this flexibility, if we talk on a generational level, it's not just the millennials that would be agile enough. Everybody could be agile.
Well, I think agility is a mindset, not an age. You know, you have some 65-year-olds who are agile as anything, and you have some 25-year-olds that are old ducks. So it just depends on how you want to apply yourself and how you want to understand how to show up in this new future. You can spend time complaining about it, or you can spend time recreating yourself and reinventing yourself. There's really no excuse. You have access to more information than you've ever had before in your life. You have access to more thought leaders on any subject that you could ever dream of through YouTube and Vimeo and you name it, or across Google. So if you're not actually taking responsibility for how you're showing up in the future, the tsunami of change is going to drown you. And it's really up to you. And I end off my book with, it's your incredible privilege of choice what you want to do. It's ultimately.
John, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that was John Sane and his new book, MAGNETiiZE. The previous book was What's Your Moonshot? So both of these books very much worth reading. And that brings us to the end of Talking Books. And thanks for watching. See you next time.